What's up? I'm Jared Harris, and this is episode 38 of Beats by Jer. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to be joined by a very special guest, someone who I consider among my absolute favorite guitarists and songwriters, and is the leading force behind not only one of my favorite albums, but some of the greatest records of the 90s, proving to be incredibly influential on the course of modern rock. Today, I am joined by the one and only Jerry Cantrell. Making an impressive debut in 1990 with their full-length album, Facelift, Alice in Chains became one of the defining bands of the Seattle grunge scene, known for their dark, heavy sound that blended elements of metal, hard rock, and alternative. Their sophomore album, Dirt, proved to be not only one of their most acclaimed bodies of work, but was also among the greatest of the decade, an era-defining moment that raised the bar for grunge and alternative rock that proved to be wildly influential. Between these two records, songs like Man in the Box, We Die Young, Bleed the Freak, Sea of Sorrow, Them Bones, Rooster, Down in a Hole, and Wood all proved to be essentials. The band continued forward, regularly attempting to break the mold in which they set, as seen through a pair of EPs, first 1992's Sap and the predominantly acoustic Jar of Flies, as well as their more experimental approach taken on their 1995 self-titled album. And of course, I'd be remiss not to mention their stunning live album, Unplugged, which makes a strong case for the ultimate MTV Unplugged session. The band's sound, no matter where they roamed, musically was centered around Cantrell's riffs and his sometimes lead but more often backing vocals, which saw him lean on dissonance behind Lane Staley's exceptional melodies. While the band would take a hiatus in 1996 and Staley passed in 2002, Alice in Chains would reform with lead vocalist William Duvall in 2008 and have since released a powerful trio of records: Black Gives Way to Blue, The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here, and Rainier Fog. Their return has made them a regular headliner on the rock festival circuit, and as a band, they have established themselves as an elder statesman position within the genre as one of the only first-wave grunge bands remaining. In the wake of Alice in Chains' hiatus, Cantrell took the time to begin working on his first solo album. He would release Boggy Depot in 1998 and would follow it with The Degradation Trip in 2002, and later that year would release The Degradation Trip Volumes 1 and 2. All three albums seem nostalgic for early grunge while demonstrating Cantrell's artistry beyond that of Alice in Chains as he took a full lead position. With Alice in Chains reforming shortly after this, it is no surprise that Cantrell put his solo work on the back burner until 2021's Brighton, a dark and brooding alternative record that was led by a largely acoustic-based single, Atone. The album, largely absent of riffs, seemed like a significant departure as Cantrell continued to expose a different voice in his songwriting. In fact, it was less reminiscent of the likes of Dirt and Facelift and was more in the vein of A Jar of Flies. It was to my surprise then that Cantrell returned in October 2024 with I Want Blood, one of his heaviest albums to date, and features singles Vilified, Afterglow, and the title track. Additionally, the album features performances from the likes of Duff McKagan, Robert Trujillo, and Greg Puciato. Beyond the singles, I Want Blood is a thoroughly enjoyable album full of moments of greatness. An example of this is Echoes of Laughter, the only song to feature a co-writer in the form of Tyler Bates, and is an exceptionally melancholic ballad that revels in darkness. Featuring Puciato and Lola Collette on backing vocals and Vincent Jones on keys, Echoes of Laughter can stand among Cantrell's greatest ballads and showcases an incredibly emotive guitar solo and a series of melodic lead lines. The riff-heavy Throw Me a Line feels as though it was unearthed from the sludgiest of gutters, while Held Your Tongue is nostalgic for classic Alice in Chains. There is a depth to Cantrell's performance and songwriting that his audience should come to expect. However, I Want Blood feels especially nuanced and is among my favorite rock records from 2024. Jerry Cantrell's I Want Blood North American Tour with support from Filter kicks off on January 31st, 2025 in Niagara Falls, Ontario, and will run into March. Here is my conversation with Jerry Cantrell. Jerry Cantrell, thank you very much for joining me today for the Spill Magazine and Beats by Jer.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Literally anytime. Anytime.
Yeah,
So
cool.
congrats on the recent release of your fifth studio album, I Want Blood. It's for me, it's been a record that's been on repeat pretty much since I first heard it. Like I had an early access to it, and it's just one of those records that's I've constantly been coming back to since the fall.
Oh man, I appreciate that. I'm really happy with how that turned out, and it's always an adventure that you set yourself on. You don't really have a direction, mapped out in your head, at least the way that I go about it. And so I'm always surprised where I end up, hopefully you're going someplace you maybe haven't gone before. And I, I think that I think the record's really strong. The musicians and the production people, the whole team that helped me put it together, everybody kicked ass, and I think the end result is a really strong record.
It's a kick-ass record, absolutely. Before we really get into that, I think that's really interesting, the idea of going into a record not knowing where it's going to end up, especially when we compare I Want Blood to Brighton. So I kind of want to take a step back before we look at the new record, just to kind of like
Sure.
look at this artistic journey a bit. Um, the Degradation Trip Volumes 1 and 2 dropped in 2002. Brighton followed almost 20 years later in 2021. I'm very curious, why then, what made you want to make that record? And what pulled you into wanting to go back to solo work at that point?
Well, it's kind of a weird bookend. The circumstances were different, of course, but I had some time on my hands in Alice when I did Boggy Depot and Degradation Trip with
Hmm.
with no plans for the band to do anything. And of course, that's always been my main focus is Alice. So I had some time on my hands, and I thought I would challenge myself and call up some friends and make some music. And so that's where those two records came out, and they were made in about a 3-4 year window too, as well. And both Brighton and I Want Blood were kind of done in the same similar fashion. Like I say, different time, different circumstances or whatever. But I had the time to do it, and I felt like I just felt like wanted to have that experience again. And so I jumped into it with Tyler Bates and all the fine musicians that I put together for the Brighton experience, and then went out and toured it. And I had a lot of fun doing that. And so I guess because I hadn't done it, as you say, in 20 years, it was really fun to do that, and it was kind of inspiring and invigorating. And so I felt when I got home from that tour and wrapped that cycle, I got right into writing again. I thought we didn't really have anything on the books, with Alice as far as like a record tour cycle or whatever. So I thought I'd just jump right in and do another one, real quick.
That's really cool. Um, Brighton was a really surprising record just because it was so different. I think when people heard that you were releasing a solo record, they were expecting something in lines with Alice or those original solo albums. Now I know you said that you don't go into these albums with the plan of knowing where you'll end up, but it felt like a little bit of a departure, right? Now what was that process like, and what challenges did that pose to you?
I mean, I agree with you in the sense that it's a record I've never made before. But as far as stylistically, we've traveled a lot of territory in Alice, and
Hmm.
we started that. We started widening that play field right after facelift by doing SAP. So,
For sure.
you know, we had already widened the field that we can kind of play in, meaning we can go wherever we want to go. And I think that I carry that ethos with me wherever I go. You're trying to. I don't think you can really say any Alice record sounds like another Alice record, and I don't think that any of the records that I've done on my own you could say the same. You could probably use that same standard. They're all really unique, and I'm not trying to repeat myself. So you're trying to do two things. Number one, be confident. You can always be confident you're going to be you. So, so you got that covered, right? You're going
Mm.
to sound like you, and you know that really frees you up to kind of go where the music wants to take you, you know. And I think that approach is why you get the unique records that you do, but they're still really identifiable. And and you know, it's all rock and roll, dude. So you know,
Absolutely,
it's just
yeah.
different flavors, different styles. Maybe you draw on different influences, you know, that make up what you are, and also as a player and a writer that you've developed, you know, to have your own sound. You know, you as I say, you can always trust that that's going to be there. So really, that's not a lot of. You don't need to spend a lot of time worrying about that. You know, just get in when I get into the writing process. You know, get a month or two into like writing for a project or whatever, then it starts to reveal itself kind of where it wants to go, and then you just follow it. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Given that Brighton though, like again, like very unique compared to the other records, and all of the records since have also been very unique. I fully agree with you. But given that Brighton was a little bit more left field, I Want Blood is like a super heavy record, right? And I think it's,
Yeah.
much more riff heavy. Was there at any point, and you've kind of answered this, but was there at any point a very conscious decision that you wanted to return with something significantly heavier, or was it just that that's what revealed itself in those stages?
Yeah. It's more like the second part of that. You know what I mean? I really I've learned not to try to force stuff. You know what I mean? And you know, fortunately, you know, we've had a lot of success in our career, and we're not on anybody's clock, and we don't, you know, we're not trying to make a deadline. You know, you know what I
Mm.
mean? We're,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
we've earned the freedom to operate on our own timeline, and do things when and how we feel them. You know what I mean? And you know, that's a freedom that's hard earned, and you know, I'm very grateful to have it, and so that's a fun thing to play with. You know, I never think like I need to make a heavy record now, or I need to make an acoustic record now, or it's always been the same. You get into the process. I don't think you want to limit yourself. You know, in other words, I guess if I went in thinking I'm going to do a certain thing, then I'm cutting myself off to what naturally happens in the moment. You know, and that's really where the best stuff comes from, is just getting into motion and see what happens. You know.
Hmm. Can you tell me about the writing and recording of I Want Blood?
Sure. I mean, generally speaking, my writing process is, you know, it changes a bit with personnel, I guess, and you know, of course, through the years, you know, different times of life, you know, but those things change, but the process remains the same. And so whether I'm working on a record for myself, or I'm focused on writing some material for an Alice record, generally takes me about 3 or 4 months. You know, I don't know what starts it, you know, but I know when it begins. Like, okay, it's time to start working on something. And so
Mm.
what I just kind of commit myself for 3 or 4 months, and you know, get in and just start writing. And I just write a bunch of stuff, and you know, after a period of time, you know, you start to have a body of work, and you know, like as I said earlier, and when we were talking about it, it's usually pretty, in the first month or two. You know, you usually get a pretty good signpost on which direction it wants to go. You know, you may be writing stylistically a whole bunch of stuff, but maybe some things are emerging that start to feel like they feel like they want to be together. Like, and you're kind of, you just put your finger in the air, see which way the wind's blowing, and you follow it. You know.
Yeah. Um, Walk me through like a typical song. Like when you say you spend a couple months writing, does that start with music first? I mean, most people I think of you as a guitarist first, but you're a very impressive vocalist, and you have such a lead role with your solo stuff, obviously, but even in Alice, you're kind of in that co-lead position. Um,
Sure.
and is this writing process largely solo? Is it collaborative with the group you're with? How does that work?
Yeah, it's usually the first part of it is always solo. And really that's a misnomer. It's me and an engineer and it's always me and a co-pilot somewhere. And but I like to walk in into any album, knowing that I've got 7, 8, 9 solid songs in my back pocket to walk into to present to the band or present to the group that I'm making a record with, and then maybe pieces of a whole bunch of other stuff which we end up working on together.
Cool.
I've got to know that I'm coming in with some pretty strong blueprints, and of course those are going to change. When you get together, everybody's going to have ideas, and arrangements can change, or what you have done may inspire somebody else to come up with a better idea or a different idea that works. And so it's really 3 phases. One is making sure I've got my shit together. Just for me, knowing that I'm walking in like, okay, that song's good. Okay, I've got a good grip of songs here I can walk into, to present to people. I want to make sure that my end is covered so that I'm doing my bit for the band. You know what I mean? And everybody else is doing the same thing. And then the next process is where the collaborative stuff starts to happen, where you start putting things together. You start molding each other's stuff. You start coming up with other ideas, or just naturally the way that Sean plays and William sings and plays and Mike plays. They're going to change it just by even if the blueprint is followed, pretty close to a T. It's going to be different just because of the people that I'm making the music with. They're going to put their thing into it.
Of course.
That goes for me too. When somebody brings a song in, I'm gonna blend myself into what they're bringing to the table as well. The ultimate goal is trying to make the song the best possible version that it can be. So we all have the same goal. We're just trying to make great music, great songs, and if you put enough of them together, make a great album.
Yeah. I listened to your conversation with Rick Beato. His show is fantastic. And you mentioned that you have this like ever-growing bank of riffs. And I'm wondering, I'm curious with I Want Blood, how much of this record was influenced or pulled from that bank, or how much of it was like that 3-month like going in and writing this record? And building off of that as well, like the band layout. Actually, we'll get to that later. I'm getting ahead of myself. How does the bank of riffs work with this one?
Yeah, well, again, that's a pretty tried and true, method of mine, I guess. I collect riffs all the time, but I don't write all the time. You know what I mean? So usually when I'm touring, I don't write a whole lot. So when I'm in a tour cycle, I'm focused more on the live element and trying to represent the material as well as I can live, and that's kind of the headspace. Now, you're jamming all the time and you're coming up with ideas, and you don't want to forget a good idea when you stumble across one. So, I've learned to record anything that I think is interesting, just to make sure I don't forget it. You do that for a year or two, you're going to come up with a bunch of ideas so that when you get into a writing phase again, you can go back through that and comb through that and build some really strong ideas out of those. And then also once you're in the moment, things spontaneously happen too. So I would say that this record is a pretty, it's a pretty standard operating procedure for me. They're riffs I've collected over the last couple of years previously in Brighton, in the Brighton period, I guess, of dressing rooms and sound checks and hotel rooms and sitting on the couch at home, it's like money in the bank to me. I've learned that if you got an idea, they're not all good ideas, but you never know. you never know unless you put it down that it might be a good idea. It might develop into something. So, I just put those riffs in the bank, and down the road, somewhere, I'm going to extract that and build it into something. So.
Yeah. Um, Now, you've talked about the idea of these songs, these blueprints changing based off of who's in the room and obviously them adding their own touch to this. And you use Alice as the main example there. On Brighton, you pretty much had like a standard, like a set band. Um, on I Want Blood, you have a lot of different musicians playing with you on different songs, and just kind of popping up. Was it the intention from the
Yeah.
get-go just to create more opportunities with collaboration? Was it like who's around, or was it just like let's call up some friends and see who comes by?
Yeah, it's kind of more the second thing there, and I would correct you in saying that I think Brighton was a kind of a collaborative thing too, as far as musicians go. We had two drummers on that. We had two bass players. We had multiple keyboard players, pedal steel. The core. I don't know if it was really a core band either. You know what I mean? We had
Okay,
Abel
yeah.
Boreal Jr. and Gil Sharon on drums. On this one, we had Gil Sharon and Mike Borden. Last time it was Duff and me on bass, and this time it was Robert Trujillo, Duff, and me on bass. So it's similar players, and if you notice, I like I like working with people that I've got a history with, and these are people that I admire as musicians. They're good friends of mine, and they got some pretty good day jobs. You know what I mean? So we got some pretty badass bands that they're part of. So luckily the writing process and the recording process was through the kind of winter holiday window, and normally a lot of us aren't on the road during that time. So I knew I was going to have a good shot at maybe being able to catch some of these guys within between legs, of their own band, with making records and so. You put the call out, and I've been really lucky, and most of the time everybody said yes. So and if they can't do it, we schedule it for when they can do it. So.
Nice, nice. At any point, did you consider making I Want Blood an Alice in Chains record?
No.
Okay, follow-up question then. What to you makes a song a Jerry Cantrell song as opposed to, say, an Alice in Chains song when you're putting those blueprints down?
I mean, it's really, Alice is a really versatile band, and we can do any type of material, and we've made a lot of different kind of records. I would say the same thing for the records I've done on my own. So
For sure.
really, it really just comes down to timing and lineup. If I'm writing these songs at the particular time where we're working on an Alice record, and the guys dig them, then it can become an Alice record. If I'm working with a different group of people, for a record on my own, then that's going to be that. It's really just logistics, like the lineup.
Okay, yeah.
The lineup may change, but the game remains the same.
Yeah. What do you have a favorite song on the album?
I think they're all really good, and
Oh, absolutely.
it's hard to say which kid you like more. Maybe one day one's more of a shit than the next day. Or maybe you got, maybe you're feeling the vibe of one day, and maybe the next day you like something else. I'm really still enjoying them all, and they're still fresh enough, that I'm not sick of them yet. So
Fair.
And we just started cracking the surface of playing some of these live. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around being able to pull some of these off in a live context. They're quite challenging compositions, and even in the writing and recording of this, I really felt like I was operating beyond my abilities in a lot of respects as a singer, as a guitar player, as a writer, as a producer. So I felt like I was challenging myself to maybe hit some marks I didn't think I might. I didn't know if I was able to hit confidently, and it's always nice to put yourself in uncomfortable positions to see if you can fucking pull it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you're operating in that sort of a space, you that's a good space to create in. It makes you try to reach for something that's not safe. You know what I mean?
Is
So
there like a particular moment on the album that comes to mind when you're just describing that?
I mean, the whole record for me, for me, um, each record has its own challenges, and it's really interesting. Even though we played it, and I sang it in a studio, so I know I can do it. But
Hmm.
when you actually, it's a different thing when you put it on a stage and put it in a live context, and it's just a different animal when it's performed live than when it's recorded from live. You know what I mean? So the songs kind of I don't know, they kind of evolve in a live context, and things that you didn't think would be challenging when you recorded them because they weren't then are more challenging in a live context, and then maybe some things that were really challenging in a recording context, they're a lot easier live. So you just have to figure those out and get your reps. And like I said, we just started cracking. I've only done a handful of gigs, Pappy and Harriet's, and a couple of gigs in South America where we were digging deep into the record. On the summer tour with Bush, we were really only playing Vilified and Afterglow, because those were like the
Mm.
only songs that were out. The
Yeah.
album wasn't released yet. So I've
Yeah.
only really gotten a handful of reps on the new stuff. So I'm really looking forward to this U.S. run from January to March to really dig into this record.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to catching it.
Yeah, yeah,
Curious about Vilified because you've talked before, and I've heard it in a few interviews, podcasts, that you have always picked the singles. You and the band have always picked the singles for Alice in Chains, and you've
yeah,
sometimes received pushback,
yeah.
right? Like Man in the Box, We Die Young. Vilified is such a like the song is explosive, it's powerful, but like it's 6 and it's 7. It's such a weird choice for a single. At this point in your career,
It
do
is.
you still receive that pushback, or is it just like, you know what, Jerry knows?
Well, I don't. It's on my own label, so I don't really have
Oh,
to
fair.
fight with
Yeah.
anybody about it. I don't really have to fight with anybody. I'm like, this is it, and this is what I'm going with. And even in the early days, those those conversations and clashes with the record company, those went away pretty quick because we made a couple of calls that the record company might have disagreed with, and they worked. And so after that, they couldn't really say anything. Like, we got this, man. Trust us. Just you do your job. We'll do ours. And we know music. You know the business. Let's leave it at that. Division of labor. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
um, I thought that was a good song to start with. Now, it's not your typical single. It's kind of, like you say, it's in multiple time signatures. But also, if you want to analog a pretty strong single and a big song from Alice, Them Bones was a odd time
Hmm.
signature,
Yeah.
big single as well. So I was kind of surprised that it lasted as long as it did. It's still getting played. You know what I mean? And I think it was the highest charting single since maybe Anger Rising. From Degradation Trip. So it's an odd song. I didn't expect it to have the impact that it did. You never know that aspect, how long a song is going to last, or how deep it's going to reach with people. And I'm pleasantly surprised to see it turn into as long a lasting single as it has. We're just getting ready to shift to Afterglow now. And I thought we would be into Afterglow a couple of months ago, but Vilified has been hanging around there, and people want to hear it, so that's good.
Yeah, it's a great song. Um, you are like one of those guys that's just always writing incredible riffs. And they're always so distinctive to you. You hear a riff, you know it's a Jerry Cantrell riff. Um, given that you're always jamming, writing, what do you look for in a riff? What is something that you tend to do that makes you take pause and you're like, that's cooking, you know?
Yeah, I think it's really simple, like with songwriting, lyrics, riffs, you're something that makes you feel something. You know what I mean? Any sort of emotion. You know, if anything can elicit an emotion in you, like fuck yeah, or like Vilified's a good example. Like people are always telling me they like to drive fast, or they like to use it as their workout song. Like it's an
Yeah,
aggressive tune,
I've done both.
it
Yeah.
it fits a vibe. You know what I mean? So quite simply, when I'm starting with a riff, and that evolves into the song, and that same ethos evolves into the record. You want it to make you feel something, and if it's going to make you feel something, there's a good chance that somebody else that maybe has listened to your stuff in the past that digs it, they might dig it too, and they might feel something as well. So you're trying to you're trying to create something that makes you feel something, and also something that makes other people feel too. And using yourself as the soundboard, you're a human being just like anybody else. And so if it's working for you, it's probably going to work for somebody else too.
Hmm. Um, Similarly, you have a really unique approach to guitar solos. They're very melodic, lots of peaks and valleys. And within a solo, you're able to create like these really memorable moments. Your solos to me have always felt very refined, very like orchestrated, and like almost like you apply your songwriting approach to the solo within the song. Um,
Sure.
what do you like? What goes into making a guitar solo for you?
Yeah, I approach solos. I kind of approach solos like a vocal part. You know what I mean? So it's got to be something that hasn't happened before in the song, and it's got to be an elevating thing, and it has to have some energy to it as well. And I like to construct them as well. So what I do is I just do a bunch of free form stuff. I'll just do a bunch of free form solos, and I'll pick the best parts and kind of just mess around with things until it makes sense. And then there are times when just going off the cuff is great, and I have done that before, and I still do it occasionally. But generally, I just start really raw and throw just a whole bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And like, hey, that part's cool, and this would be cool in the middle, and that's a good end right there. You know what I mean? And then I'll take all those pieces that stick on the wall, and I'll kind of put them together. So I think that's correct. I think more often than not, I'll compose a solo, but it always starts from doing a bunch of just off the cuff stuff, just in the feel, so yeah.
Yeah, cool, cool. And on a final note about songwriting, I'd say you're a rare songwriter who's able to write really intense hard rock songs with an equal level of conviction that you put into ballads. Like if we look at I Want Blood, Vilified is such an aggressive, driving song. It's so intense. It's an amazing choice for a lead single. But then you have a song like Echoes of Laughter, and it's just this incredibly emotive, dark, solemn ballad. And, like
Yep.
it's hard to say, like, some bands you hear a ballad, you're like, okay, whatever. The Jerry Cantrell, the Alice in Chains ballad songs are as important as the hard rockers. Um, is that a challenge? Like you obviously put so much work into both sides of the spectrum of this, but like, is one more challenging than the other? Is it just another opportunity to write in a different way and express yourself in that way?
I think it's really interesting. You don't have to have like tempo and distortion to be heavy. You
No,
know what I
not at
mean?
all.
Some of the heaviest songs Alice ever wrote were like really two chord ballads. Nutshell. That's fucking heavy, dude. You know,
Yeah.
it's that hits hard. That hits just as hard as fucking Them Bones or fucking We Die Young or Man on the Box. You know what I mean? So, you know, I think it's just approach. You know what I mean? Again, you know, you're trying to. One thing I've never done, and this is something I've developed in the band with Alice, and we always had an unspoken agreement. We never were going to pull punches. You know, never. We weren't going to sand any edges off. We weren't going to, you know, warts and all approach to writing, and we generally wrote about what was going on or what was happening, and some of those things are hard, heavy things, you know, about life, and they bleed their way into the music, you know what I mean, and you know, Echoes of Laughter, you know, I'd experienced a couple of you know, personal losses that year, and you know, that kind of went into the lyrical part of that. But also my good friend Tyler Bates, who was my partner on Brighton, and my guitar player and band leader in the band as well. He was kind of committed to working with Manson on a record, and he had, you know, he does all sorts of great film work and stuff like that. So I just knew I wasn't going to have him in the I knew I wasn't going to have him in the capacity that I had him on Brighton, but he was still very involved in being a great sounding board. And we were sitting around one day, and he kept playing this guitar figure, and I'd heard him play this thing because we've been jamming together for the last couple of years. It would keep resurfacing. I'm like, man, we should make that into a song, because you keep playing it, so it wants to be a song. So let's make a song out of it. So we plugged him in and started recording the guitar, and I just kind of freeform started singing the chorus, and actually the lyrics came out just as they are. That chorus came out in one shot. That's a real rarity for me. The melody line and the chorus, and it just kind of happened in that moment. We put it together, and it's you know, it's a song that I'm really proud of on that record. He and I made a really great song together.
For sure. That's I mean, the whole record front to back is fantastic, but that song in particular is like, whoa, let's play that one again.
Yeah, it feels like it should be in a movie. You know what I
It
mean?
feels
It feels
very
like
cinematic.
like
Yeah.
it's very cinematic. I agree. Yeah.
Um,
And
so
you know, I guess that's what I'm trying to you want to have some sort of element of that. You want to create some sort of a landscape with your music. You want it to take listeners on a journey. You know, you don't want to just stay on one beat all the time. Like, you know what I mean? Even if the main beat is a certain thing, you've got to be able to change and shift and show some different scenes, and then wrap it up. You know what I mean? With a
mhm.
with a great. I mean, I'm a big fan of film, and I like to think that I kind of approach songwriting and music in some sort of a cinematic way. I'm trying to create a journey. You know, create more than a few scenes. Something that makes a really powerful short film, I guess, of a song. You know, so at least that's the way I kind of look at it in my head. You know.
I mean, that opens up the possibility for a really cool discussion. Do you find that there's like a particular genre or a particular filmmaker that inspires you and your writing?
I mean, there's so many great ones. I mean, you know, drama, sci-fi, horror, comedy. I like dark comedy. Dark comedy is good, but you know, historical stuff. I mean, there's a ton of great filmmakers. You know,
Of
Tarantino.
course.
Uh, you know, the Coen brothers, Kubrick. You know, Oliver Stone, Scorsese, of course. You know, I mean, you know, you can just go down the list. I'm a big fan of filmmakers, actors, and also musicians who create the music that tells a story to go along with film as well. I think they're natural partners in storytelling, and so, you know, I guess I have a little of that bleeds into the how I approach making music anyway. I'm trying to create visual landscapes. You know,
Mm.
takes you to a place that you can actually see in your head. You know, so
Is there anyone, like, when we look specifically at I Want Blood, is there anyone in particular, filmmaker or musician, that comes to mind that like kind of inspired the direction and tone of the album?
I mean, Scorsese knocked me out of a writer's block on what song was it? It was, let me think here. Hold on, give me just a sec. It's a little early in the day. I'm not for me anyway. I'm not caffeinated enough.
Fair, fair.
Let's see. Paid. God, I can't even fucking remember the tune. Anyway. Hold on a sec here. Let me just look at this real quick. I'm blanking on my own fucking record. Library. There it is. Let me take a look at it real quick. Off the Rails. Yeah, Off the Rails. The second verse of Off the Rails. I got a good start going, and I just hit a fucking wall, and it happens all the time. You just got to wait it out, or just try to break through it, And I went and saw Killers of the Flower Moon, and that second verse was kind of almost taken from a scene, one of the scenes in that movie, and it just oddly fit with the subject matter that I was writing about. So even though it wasn't about that movie at all, it just kind of knocked me out of where I needed to be. And
That's
I saw
really
that,
cool.
and I went home. And I sat back, and I was able to kind of get through my writer's block. Now that I didn't write that song about Killers of the Flower Moon,
Yeah. But it's like that creative energy that just like.
But seeing that movie that night got me out of my fucking writer's block to fucking finish that song, and it turned out to be a great tune.
It's a great one. And I mean, it's so funny that you say that, because like having this discussion about directors and films, and I think about the intro of that song, and I get such a like a John Carpenter vibe.
Sure.
It seems so classic slasher.
Yeah. I love Carpenter.
Yeah. So anyways, as we wrap this up, you have a tour kicking off at the end of January. What should the audience expect? This is the first time that you get to really dig into this record, you were saying. So what do you guys have planned?
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun trying to figure out what you're going to play for set lists, and they change and they mold as you go by. Mostly, I'm only playing a certain amount of time every night, and I'm trying to serve not only the latest offering, which we will. We're going to get into that for sure, but you want to serve all the other ones too. So, I'm trying to pick songs throughout my career, that I've written over the last 35 years, and luckily I've got a lot of choices there. So, and I mean, there's some songs that people connect to, and more often than not, the majority of people are going to want to hear you play those songs. And so, I know what those songs are, and you just you try to pepper in album cuts where you can, and stuff maybe you haven't played for a while. Every cycle, and maybe try to throw in a tune or two that maybe you haven't played in years. You know what I mean? That's always fun to do, but it'll just be I'm going to do like a novel thing. I'm going to play songs that I've written. That's what you can expect.
Breaking the mold.
I'm gonna do something crazy, man. I'm gonna play some songs that I wrote that you might dig.
They'll never see it coming. I will.
Hey.
I will most certainly be at the show, the tour opener at Niagara Falls. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time.
Oh yeah, man. Really stoked that Filter's going with us too, man. That's going to be a good show, man.
Yeah, Filter's awesome. So the question that I like to leave everyone with before we bring this to an end, what would you say are your 3 desert island records?
Oh man, I'm horrible at these things. Picking favorites. because I have so many of them.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hard.
I don't know, man. Like,
Okay, like let's not say like
I,
ultimate favorites, but maybe
I'm,
like current favorites, ones that you go back to a lot right now.
uh, Highway to Hell, probably. You know, Dark Side of the Moon. Um, Led Zeppelin 4. Yeah.
Mm, great choices. Yeah, great records. Well, Jerry, thank you very much for joining me today. It has been an incredible opportunity to have you here for the Spill Magazine and Beats by Jer.
Okay, man. Good talking to you.
Have a good one.
All right, man. Bye.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Jerry Cantrell. I Want Blood is available on all digital platforms and physical formats, including not just the album, but 12-inch singles on colored vinyl. These can be purchased at your favorite record store or at jerrycantrell.com. The I Want Blood North American Tour kicks off on January 31st at Niagara Falls, Ontario. I hope to see you there. Get your tickets now for Jerry Cantrell's headlining tour with Filter. Tune in 2 weeks for a brand new episode of Beats by Jer. I'm Jared Harris, and this is Beats by Jer.